Well, I was fired from yesterday because of the Rodney Hinton situation. The young man, son was found alive by the Cincinnati Police Department. So this what happened.
You shot straight, but you shot late. Hi, Lem. This is the Rundown Podcast.
I'm gonna give you the rundown.
Say, man, hey, man, hey, man. It's OG Jucario. And I'm back at you with another one. And in recent social media reports, and it was never claimed by news reports that the officer in the Rodney Hinton Jr. case, right, when he was being arrested at that hospital there and taken on that elevator, right, to the police cars that were waiting on him to be transferred to the jail there, that black officer was said to have been fired all because he got on that elevator with all those other white cops and said that he was intimidating the white cops, right, who had Rodney Hinton detained. Now, that type of rhetoric that the black officer was only there on that elevator to intimidate the white cops from not doing something to Hinton while he was on that elevator is basically coming from the same very people who wanted to see something done to Hinton, right? And they looked at that black officer, being intimidating because, this is just the nature of those people who feel like that, right? I mean, in no way, shape, form, or fashion did, this black officer who was also in attendance when Hinton was being questioned and detained in the room that he was being held at the hospital before transport. That same officer was there, right? You can see him in the background walking behind the officers. OK, so this right here debunks the theory of those, who only seen a clip, a small portion of just the officer, getting on the elevator, as I showed in the beginning. But if you actually watch the full body camera footage, the officer was already in attendance and he was already, with the same group of officers, okay, before the elevator ride, up until the elevator ride, and he escorted them all out the building with Rodney Hinton Jr. handcuffed until he was put in the car. So, everybody's going to have a different opinion, but when you see the actual facts, you can't dispute that. And as I can see, many were thinking that this black officer who got on the elevator just, picked out these white officers who was walking this suspect onto the elevator, right, with not a black officer in sight, and just figured that he'll just get on the elevator ride out the blue, like he just came out of nowhere, when in fact that's not true. The officer was already with that group of officers, right? And obviously he's the officer that's on duty there at the hospital. That's why he stayed with the group that was with Hinton during the transport. Now, the black community, they praised this black officer for getting on that elevator with all those white officers that had Hinton detained, right? Because many people felt like, had that black officer not been there and rode that elevator, that anything could have took place on that elevator, and they could have said Hinton tried to go for their gun or anything. You know how they, come up with these things out of thin air, right? Cut their body cameras off and all this here. And that's when the cover up, the setup comes, right? Allegedly. Now check this out, right? Now, shortly after that, a video came out on TikTok of a black man, right? Dressed in some type of security uniform, giving his story, saying that after he was at work talking about the Rodney Hinton Jr. case with his fellow employees, he said that he was fired by his boss because of his opinion about Rodney Hinton Jr., right?
Well, I was fired from the yesterday because of the Rodney Hinton situation. The young man, son was found alive by the Cincinnati Police Department. So this what happened. While I was on break, right, I heard a supervisor spoke along our colleagues, because we work along with K9, we also work along with NYPD. He was talking about the Rodney Hinton situation. He said, well, y'all people have to understand. And I'm like, excuse me, y'all people? Well, you know what I mean. I said, no, I don't know what you mean. If you want to get technical, a man is innocent proven guilty. A charge doesn't mean the man was prosecuted. It's just a charge. He said, go to break, go to break, go to break. And I said, I'm already on break. Make a long story short, he called his account manager, and the account manager said I was removed from the schedule. So that's how I got fired from my job. How could you ever take a child's life because of skin color? Don't you know that child somebody's son? You took away George Floyd, Eric Garner, now Rodney Hinton.
And this person that said, you know, that he was fired because of this, everybody associated his story with the same black cop who got on that elevator with Rodney Hinton Jr. and those white officers as he was being transported to the jail. The rumors spread like wildfire. People started making videos, content creators started giving their opinions on it, and, you know, putting out videos saying that this, you know, security guard, which is a totally different guy that was actually on the elevator, because the guy that was actually on the elevator, that guy is an actual police officer. That black man is a real police officer, okay? Now, this security guard who did this TikTok video saying that he was, you know, fired for talking about the Rodney Hinton case, it looks like a security outfit that he has on. He has no police, you know, attire on at all. So I don't understand. And they have no, you know, resemblance at all neither. Just two, you know, heavy set black men, okay? But as far as the facial features go, they look nothing alike, okay? So we came to find out that this is false information. The brother there who got on the elevator, you know, basically looking after Rodney Hinton, as some would say, making sure that the brother was safe, you know, he was not fired from his job. So, you know, I had to get this information, you know, correct for a lot of people out there who are still believing in misinformation and disinformation that was put out there on many people's platforms concerning the Rodney Hinton Jr. case. And yeah, man, it was big buzz because this officer did receive a lot of praise, like I said, from the black community for doing this deed, this act of riding that elevator, you know, with those white cops in the time of tension, racial tension here in America, right? And you see how they flipped it on us. Well, the black cop was trying to intimidate. Well, that was the story about the white cops, the hundreds of white cops who was there trying to intimidate, you know, Rodney Hinton Jr. after he ran over their colleague, Larry Henderson, right? And now, as we do know, our brother Rodney Hinton Jr., he is facing the death penalty. They gave him a capital murder charge, right? Aggravated murder. And they're trying to kill the brother, okay? They're, you know, basically, you know, already lining him up to be taken out by the system, okay? And they're saying all because he did this to an officer while the officer was in the line of duty. Now, stop right there. Remember, everybody was like, well, why did they give him 2 aggravated murder charges if he only killed 1 officer? Well, they said that when you kill an officer in the line of duty, that's 1 aggravated murder charge. And just because he's a human being, right? Even when he's not on duty, that's also considered another charge for that murder of that individual, right? So both of those are aggravated murder charges all in one, right? And many people, said, oh, wow, I didn't know they did that. Well, yeah, there are laws there in Ohio, allows them to charge these suspects like that if they kill an officer in the line of duty. Not only will you have one aggravated murder charge, you'll get two just because it was an officer in the line of duty, right? So now we have this case, right, out of Morrow County where this white man, Brian Michael Wilson, 53-year-old, he guns down a white officer, right? In a town who ain't had an officer killed, but one time, and that was back in 1940, right? So they haven't seen this in, maybe before everybody in that town was born almost, right? And now you have a situation where, they have to give this white man the same treatment, okay? They're still in Ohio, same state, okay? Different counties, right? And he has to get, those same two aggravated murder charges because he also killed the officer during the line of duty. Right?
The court filings against the man authorities say did this really detail the chaos that unfolded here. A call came into the sheriff's office about a shooting. Authorities say Brian Wilson had already fired off several shots, hitting neighboring homes and vehicles before Deputy Daniel Shearer got here. A neighbor led us into her home and showed us where one of the bullets came through the front window, carried through the house, and bounced off her fireplace and hit the wall next to the television. When Deputy Shearer got here, court documents say his body camera video shows Wilson shouting and cursing at him to leave or he will kill him. Wilson approaches Deputy Shearer and shoots him. Brian Wilson does have a long history with the law. He's been found guilty of previous crimes, including pointing and firing a gun at someone, aggravated menacing, and domestic violence. Now he's facing a felony charge of aggravated murder in the death of Deputy Shearer. Now, he's currently still in the hospital, but in the custody of the Delaware County Sheriff's Office, who is handling this investigation along with the Bureau of Criminal Investigations. We have requested the body camera video of this incident, but have not received it yet.
The deadly confrontation happened at the porch of a Marengo home. It's where court records reveal Morrow County Deputy Daniel Shearer's body camera recorded him first interacting with armed suspect Brian Wilson after 7:30 last night. This is Wilson's picture from a 2009 arrest. Records show a neighbor warned the deputy Wilson had already fired shots Monday night and said, quote, "If I was going to die tonight, I'd be okay with it." Records also reveal details of a conversation between Wilson and the deputy, with Wilson saying, quote, "Don't come up here," and quote, "I'm not in the expletive mood." When the deputy tried to de-escalate the situation by talking with Wilson, Wilson said, quote, "I will expletive kill you. I will expletive kill you." Then going on to say, quote, "I'm not expletive playing. You better just expletive go if you want your family to see you tomorrow," and continuing to tell the deputy to leave. Then court records show Wilson approached the steps near the deputy's location and a shootout occurred. Overnight, investigators searched the yard with a metal detector and cut into a wall, tracking down shell casings and more. The court records now detail at least 2 bursts of gunfire happened, with a definitive pause between them, and the deputy's body camera recorded the sounds of multiple clicks, consistent with a trigger being pulled, but a gun striking a fired cartridge or an empty chamber. Investigators found 2 guns believed to be fired by Wilson, a semi-automatic pistol, and a revolver.
We are learning more about the suspect's past. According to court records, he has a criminal history that dates back 30 years in Marion County. In September of 1994, he was charged with assault. In August of 97, he was charged in a case of domestic violence. In June of 2003, a disorderly conduct charge. He was convicted in each of those cases. Now, this is his mugshot from February 2009 when he was charged again with domestic violence. He pleaded guilty to a lesser charge in that case.
And also, the sheriff, he did not want to say the name of the suspect during that news conference, saying that he didn't want to give this guy no type of props or acknowledgement or anything, or, basically try to make him famous by speaking his name, saying that he'll never say his name, right? But, telling the press that they would have to do their own research and find out who this guy is if they really wanted to know, because he just wasn't going to say. He wasn't worthy of saying his name, is what this sheriff had to say about the suspect who took the life of Deputy Shear.
Sheriff, what is the status of the suspect? Have you spoken to him or any other witnesses that have been there?
I don't know. You will never hear his name come from my lips. So if you want the name, you will have to get it some other way. I'm not giving it to you. So,
Why is that?
Why would I? Why am I going to even mention his name? I'm not going to do it. So, doesn't deserve it.
So we shall see if he gets the death penalty also, right? Will they push for that, right? Does he have the complexion for the connection? Who knows? But at the same time, we shall see how both of these cases is ironic, and they in the same state, right? Here you have a white man who kills an officer in line of duty. Here you have a black man, Rodney Hinton Jr., killing an officer in the line of duty, right? As retribution for his son getting killed, the day before by officers. So how will these two situations play out in court and in the public is what I'm interested in. I just, can't wait to see how they're going to spin these whole narratives with the, race thing being involved, okay? Now, we all seen how they did to brother Rodney Hinton, right? All them officers up there, trying to intimidate him, as we now already discussed. But we better see that same energy now when this white boy get arraigned for his first time in court, all right? We better see a whole bunch of officers there, just like we seen with Hinton at his arraignment, all right? We better see that same solidarity, that same support, as they said, right, for Larry Henderson. Yeah, we need to see that for this officer who was gunned down by Wilson, right? This is white on white crime. So are they going to respond the same way is what I want to know. I just can't wait. I must know. I got to know, right? So I'm following this case real closely, right, to see how this is going to turn out compared to Rodney Hinton Jr., right? Because, when it's them against them, it's totally different. But when it's them against us, right, we already know how that go down. Now, what's the odds? What's the irony, right, in the situations that identical, as far as officers being killed in the line of duty? Totally different situations, right? But it comes out that, both of these men, right, Rodney Hinton Jr., a black man, and Brian Michael Wilson, a white man, they both killed officers while they were on duty. So that right there is automatic, according to the Ohio state law, right? Death penalty. This is eligible for death penalty, you guys. It's capital murder. Trust me, them Ohio officials, them government officials up there, they talking about this. They having conversations like, man, how ironic is it now that we got a white man that has, pulled the trigger in this case, right? And they say that this white man, Brian Michael Wilson, they say he had a revolver. He had two guns, but he had two guns. One of them was a revolver. And on the body cam footage of the officer who was gunned down, guess what? You can hear the clicks after he had emptied the rounds, steady trying to shoot. While that revolver was empty, you guys, clicks can be heard over that body cam footage of the deceased dying officer, right? And this guy is cold-blooded. Brian Wilson, this guy here is a guy that said that had no problems, as reported by neighbors that they knew of. But all of a sudden, this right here happens where he guns a cop down. And what happened? How could this occur? Well, guess what? I did a little digging. Not too much, just a little bit. And OG Jucario TV came up with this. Somebody who obviously, allegedly knows, more about the situation than a lot of people do. She stated in a Facebook comment up under the picture that somebody posted in an anonymous group on Facebook there in Morrow County, right? They posted the picture of this guy, Brian Michael Wilson, 53-year-old white man, red beard, right? And this same photo matches up with the red beard that they say that they shared a photo of in that previous news cast that I showed about this whole situation. Same red beard, but it was cut low in 2009. This is the same guy. And what caused him to snap? According to this comment made by this woman on Facebook, right, that was engaging in the conversation under the picture of the suspect, Brian Michael Wilson, she said that, no, y'all have it wrong. He was not in a domestic dispute with the wife, to her knowledge. She's saying that he was in a domestic dispute with the brother-in-law, the brother of the wife of this guy, Brian. And maybe it was because of the wife. You know how that goes, right? You know, you get into it with your wife and, you know, here comes the brother-in-law, right? Trying to, you know, cause pressure and instigation and agitation and frustration, right, to a situation that's between you and your married wife, okay, by law. And, you know, that always adds tension to the scene. And they said that, you know, this guy Brian wasn't going because they said he was already firing shots at a truck. And that happened to be the same truck of the brother-in-law that he was firing those shots at, okay? As the brother-in-law obviously sped away from the scene, getting away from Brian, okay? Because Brian meant business. And obviously the brother-in-law probably thought he didn't, right? And then guess what? Well, Brian meant so much of business, okay? And as we seen it play out, that when the officer got there, the tension was still there. They say that Brian was waiting on his porch. 2 pistols, one on the right, one on the left. Minding his business. After he just shot at his brother-in-law now, right? And bullets ricocheting and flying all across the, you know, neighbors' windows and through their houses and walls. He didn't care. Sat there. Deputy sheriff pulls up, thinking that possibly it's between him and his wife, a domestic dispute that he got a call for, and gunshots were being let off. He tells this officer, hey, I'll kill you if you don't leave. Keeps repeatedly telling him he's gonna shoot this officer, kill him. And this guy is still alive. Ain't that crazy? This white man is still alive. He survived even after he made threats to kill the officer. Killed the officer in cold blood. Now, the suspect, Brian Michael Wilson, was shot. But they say he was only shot once. Wow, not multiple times? Only once? Wow. That's crazy. Yikes. Well, we all know how this would have turned out had Brian Michael Wilson been a black man. And I'm just saying, you know, it's kind of hard to dispute that when the narrative is always that what we see play out when black men tend to do these same types of crimes. So I just thought it would be very interesting to, you know, compare the two stories. You know, like I said, they're very, you know, different situations with Rodney Hinton Jr., you know, getting retribution for his son's death, you know, at the hands of the Cincinnati, Ohio officers there. The officer said that his son pointed a gun at him before he killed the son of Rodney Hinton Jr. The day before, Rodney Hinton Jr. got in his vehicle and just ran over the first officer he seen, which happened to be Larry Henderson. So, you know, how these two dynamics, you know, shall play out in court, like I said, we shall see with Brian Michael Wilson also committing a murder on an officer while he was in the line of duty. And family, I'm curious to know, drop a comment, let me know what y'all think. And do y'all feel like this is going to get the same amount of news coverage, right, with Brian Michael Wilson killing this cop? White man gunning a white cop down, right? You think he's gonna get some sympathy? Or y'all think, you know, this is not gonna be a big deal because it's white on white crime, right? Do y'all think it's gonna get more or less coverage than the Rodney Hinton Jr. case? Being that Rodney Hinton Jr. is a black man who used his vehicle as a murder machine, right? To plow over Officer Larry Henderson, killing him, right? As retribution for his son, who was gunned down at the hands of Ohio police officers the day before. So y'all get in the comment section and y'all let me know what y'all think about this entire situation. And until the next time, this is OG Jucario TV with the latest in rap, hip-hop, celebrity, and urban news. You're watching the Rundown Podcast. I appreciate everybody for spinning with me. I appreciate all my subscribers for sliding with your boy every time. And say, man, hey, man, keep hitting that like button, keep hitting that subscribe button, and look, turn on post notification so we can slide whenever I get the drop. You already know what it is, man. It's deeper than Buddha, heard you hear me? And guess what? I'm gone.